Join hosts Mary Carter and Stephen Ross as they sit down with designer contractor Anthony Carrino for a candid deep dive into real-world comfort, what it actually takes to make a home feel great, not just read 70 degrees on the thermostat. From tightening the building envelope to right-sizing ductwork, zoning and variable speed systems, and knowing when an ERV is a must, Anthony shares practical plays to deliver quiet, balanced comfort and healthier indoor air without blowing the budget. Whether you're retrofitting an older space, planning a basement finish, or advising homeowners as a dealer or GC, this episode offers step-by-step cues to align design with mechanicals and turn comfort, airflow, and IAQ into a competitive advantage. Let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of HVAC Full Blast. I'm Mary Carter.
I'm Stephen Ross.
And we have a guest today, but in the win-loss column of how many friends does Mary not have, I think we both get a neutral for this one.
Yeah, that's you cannot take the loss this time, Mary. That's for sure.
Ooh, I really don't enjoy losing, so that's a good thing for me. Welcome, Anthony Carrino.
Thanks so much for having me. Mary, I make fast friends, so let's see how we do here. Maybe you can claim me by the end of this episode.
I like that.
Nice.
I think that's a great goal. So Anthony, you were recommended to us by some folks over at Train Technologies, and you are a designer contractor that has been in the space for 30 years.
Yeah, just about 20, 25, 26, somewhere up there. I mean, all the gray in the beard should tell you all you need to know.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so we're really excited because obviously we're called HVAC Full Blast. Stephen and I have done a lot to talk about the business side of the house and really where you can grow more skills when you're running a small business. But we're HVAC Full Blast. We got to talk about HVAC sometime, right?
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, I've been working with my friends at Train going on maybe 5 or 6 years now. But even before that, they've always been the name in the industry that I've always looked toward when it comes to, quality, high efficiency, comfort, technology, pushing HVAC as an industry forward. So I'm always excited to have the nerdy conversations and get into the good stuff around, temperature control, keeping your home comfortable. Really, wherever you guys want to go, we can dive in.
Can we start with comfort? Mary, I got a story for you. My first year of being in heating and air sales, I came from outside the industry. I had some sales background, but I didn't know a whole lot about heating and air. So my first year was a little rough. And I went out to go see this very polite Southern little old lady, gray hair in a bun, had her glasses on. And I walked in, we sat down at the dining room table, and my competitor's kind of proposal trifold brochure was there, and his business card was there. And his business card said Comfort Advisor. And the first thing that we said when we sat down, she picked this up and she goes, "Now they sent out a Comfort Advisor. Are you out here to put a mint on my pillow, or are we going to talk heating and air?" And it just struck me as really funny because in our industry, we think comfort, of course, it means heating and air, but I mean, mattress companies use that term. This lady equated it with putting a mint on her pillow at the end of the install, I guess. So Anthony, you're the general contractor. I mean, we are just looking at houses through the heating and air lens, but comfort is kind of a big term. Maybe can we start with defining that?
Yeah, well, first we can start with, I'm going to be asking all my HVAC subs for mints on my pillow at the end of these jobs now. I didn't know that was an option. And I'll tell you, man, good on you, because HVAC is one heck of a deep pool to be jumping in that first year. Like, holy cow. Ooh. And yeah, I mean, so comfort in the home, it does mean so many things. To someone like me who, I was a general contractor for a long time and a developer. I still develop my own properties. My focus now is in the design world, both architectural and interior, and project management. So my level of project management is a bit different in that, I really focus on pulling the anxiety off of my clients' shoulders. So it's kind of this full service where I take them through architectural design. How do you use your house? How do you entertain? Let's talk about flow and choke points and, spatial awareness. through the interiors. And that's everything from cabinets, countertops, and backsplashes to what kind of HVAC system are we going to spec? Do we need any kind of makeup air, ERVs, which we can get into? There's enough acronyms in this industry to knock you over. But for anybody who isn't aware, energy recovery ventilator, it's basically changing indoor and outdoor air quality. So, when I talk about design, I talk about everything from the pretty things to the systems that run your house, and like really selecting the right products to accomplish the end goal within your budget. And that within your budget is always the trade-off point, where you have to say, well, what's more important here, A or B or C or D, or go to the end of the alphabet. We all know how many decisions are need to be made by the end of a construction project. So when I think about sorry, Mary, when I think about comfort in the home, I think about the envelope that separates the outside environment from your house and how efficiently we can keep that at a constant temperature. I'm in the Northeast, so that means heat and cooling for me. Depending on where you are in the country, you may have more or less of one or the other, depending on that outdoor climate. But it's basically saying, how do we keep the outdoors out and the inside in without giving all my money to the utility company?
That sounds like a
kind of sense.
Good working definition to kick us off with comfort. Yeah.
I love that you acknowledge just all of the decisions in designing and whatnot. When we bought our house, we had an unfinished basement, and just the finishing work for that basement, I remember by the end of it, I couldn't make a decision to save my life. I mean, it was like, what do you want for dinner? And I was like, I think the answer is food. Like, I didn't even know how to.
That's great.
I didn't even know how to.
Depending on the humidity down there, are you putting a French drain in? Do you need vapor barriers? Do you have radon issues? I mean, this is why I have a job. And I got to tell you, it's one of the things that drives me crazy, going back to my HGTV days, about the lack of knowledge that television network shared with folks. And it was always, I remember the amount of speaking I would do in front of a camera, and then I'd watch the episode. And it's not that I wasn't proud of what we put out and the project came out great, but like there was no real educational value there. So I so much prefer having conversations like these where you can actually help folks try and discern, the left from the right and how to get to the finish line at the end of the day. I like to say a lot, like, you don't have to know in depth everything you're talking about, but just knowing the questions to ask, if you just listen with a logical brain, you're going to be able to pick A or B when, a subcontractor in any trade is telling you the pluses and the minuses of the two choices in front of you.
Wait, I think, one of the interesting things, and maybe this is maybe you could share with us some stories. I mean, I think, I've learned probably the most from when you kind of watch things go wrong. And I've been a part of some conversations where we at least caught it ahead of time. I'll give you a quick example. Like, we were looking at design for a house. I'm in the Southeast. We have a huge lake outside of Columbia, South Carolina, and this very nice house was going in. And, a typical heat load for let's say a 3-bedroom house, you'd have 4 or 5 people in the house max, but their dining room was designed to seat like 30 people. And so we're looking at this thing and we're going, hey, I think there's a problem here, because the design is perfect. A mechanical engineer actually did it. It's for a 5-ton system. But if we went back and said, what if they do put 30 people in this dining room, all of a sudden the numbers change dramatically. Anthony, do you have any, some examples of how maybe comfort got skewed one way or the other by unexpected usage? Is that a fair question? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Not directly. I think the most experience I've had is like the not sizing the system properly for the number of windows in a particular room. Glass is a huge heating and cooling loss factor. And when that's not taken into account properly, if you were in a room that was all sheetrock and all insulation, no natural light, not a lot of fun to be in. But if you're in a room that's fully insulated, no glass, like, okay, that load was probably accurate, but you got to take into account all of the factors in order to make sure that room is going to stay at that constant temperature. It also matters what glass you've selected, what insulation you've selected, so if you're using a standard fiberglass bat, if you're using rock wool, if you're using spray foam, those all have different, levels of insulation. The R values in glass, is it single pane? I mean, it's not single pane anymore, but just for hyperbolic storytelling, is it single pane? Is it dual pane argon filled? Now you've got triple pane glass. Do you have low E coatings on these things? So like the number of questions can kind of be endless. But the answers to those questions are really important. So, one of the things I do with my clients is we sit down and I always tell them this process is very layered. Every decision you make impacts another decision you need to make. So we try and work from the outside in. Because once you understand what that envelope is going to be made up of, the glass, whether you've got, a masonry structure, a frame structure, what your sheathing is, do you have exterior insulation on that building? And then you work your way in. Okay, now we're at the sheathing layer. Now we're at the interior wall layer. Now we've got our insulation in the interior, sheetrock, glass. Okay, now that's done, let's talk about sizing the equipment that we need in this home appropriately so that, look, Stephen, you're having a 30-person party. I think that's an outlier case. And if you're sizing a system to handle that kind of BTU load that a human being throws off, I think you're going to be way oversized. But, when you're talking about windows and insulation and walls, and the general environment, like sizing that for the number of people who live in the home for the most amount of time is what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, in that scenario, the homeowner actually, we pushed back a little bit to go to the builder. Are they really going to, why do you have a dining room this big was the question. And they said, hey, we plan on entertaining. So to your point, we did have to oversize the equipment a little bit. Go with 2 systems instead of just 1, but then put variable speed systems in that could ramp back down. Because to your point, even though they're saying, hey, we host people on a regular basis, it's still not, in terms of hours of runtime, it's not that many hours. It's just that when it happens, it's a real big deal if the heating and air can't keep up.
Yeah, and like anything in construction, it's always doable. It's just how much it's going to cost you. So if you've got an unlimited budget, hell, we'll figure it out for you. I'll put in a dedicated mini split unit that's just for that room, that when you have a party, you flip the switch and you're going to get all the cooling you need. Like no problem.
I want to zoom out a little bit because you mentioned all the layers and we're talking about comfort, and you mentioned a few key areas of comfort. So temperature feels like the one we're all most familiar with. Agreed. But you also mentioned humidity, airflow, and then air quality, right?
Yeah.
So why, how do those 3 variables of comfort then guide you in this kind of designing process? Where are these 4 in total when you get temperature? Where are they going to take us?
Okay, so I think it's important to note that humidity, temperature, and airflow are all the things that impact your indoor air quality. Your indoor air quality is the result of the things I just mentioned.
Okay.
So in order to keep an indoor air quality, or IAQ, again with the acronyms, is just, the fancy way of saying, am I breathing healthy air? And in terms of working with my clients and my approach, again, like I always just try and break it down to the most basic way someone can think about it. Instead of trying to take this heady approach, it's like, how do you make somebody who's never worked in this industry before, help them understand it? Are you and your family breathing healthy air? That's it, bottom line. So couple of factors there. With the way technology has been progressing in all manner of life, but specifically in the construction industry, you've got these really tight envelopes now, or you have the ability to have these really tight envelopes now. I mentioned rock wool, I mentioned spray foam insulation. So two great examples. Rock wool is going to breathe a bit more. It's a stone mineral wool insulation. It's super dense. It's 100% recycled, so it's made up of actually crushed rocks. That's going to let a little bit more transmission come from indoor to outdoor. When you get into the spray foam world, especially with closed cell, because there's closed cell and open cell spray foam, but when you get into closed cell spray foam, that chemical reaction is going to bleed into each nook and cranny. There, you're going to have the tightest possible envelope from the outdoor environment. Great. Yes. Also, really bad if your home isn't designed properly. So you need, in that circumstance, you really need to have an energy recovery ventilator. To explain that as simply as possible, when you're not changing the air that's in your home regularly, you start to breathe a lot more carbon dioxide because all the oxygen that you're expelling has nowhere to go. You're not bringing fresh air in, so that quality deteriorates over time. Now, for example, Trane has got the Clean Effects air filter that communicates with their systems. I happen to have it in my home. And especially like in the springtime when all that pollen's in the air, I'll just hit the allergy button and my fan will run for a consistent 24 hours and change over and filter all the air that's in my home. I don't have spray foam insulation. I have rock wool. So that to me is sufficient. If you've got spray foam insulation, you really need that ERV where, oh boy, I'm gonna do my best to explain this really simply. So the energy recovery ventilator is connected to your HVAC system, and based on the system design that is definitely above my pay grade, just to be clear, you are exchanging indoor and outdoor air. You're exchanging the indoor and outdoor air, but you are doing so in a manner that doesn't take, for example, in the middle of the winter, it's not taking frigid air from the exterior and dumping it into your home. It brings it in and it crosses the air with the air that's being spit out. So it's bringing that new frigid air up to temperature to keep your home comfortable, is our theme. But it's also bringing in, it's all fresh air. So you're not losing all the heat that you have done. You're not losing all that conditioning that you've done to the inside air. So it's kind of this efficient swap of air, if you will, from the not so healthy stuff to the fresh healthy stuff. So you're breathing, good quality air on the interior. Sorry, I know that was a long one. These answers are not short in this industry.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, it's important though, like you said, to get into the meat of it, right? Because what I have found, even in my own education on products and just getting a little bit more technical, is there's sort of like this level 1, and then it's like level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 come really fast behind it.
Yeah, level 1 is just enough to get you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where level 1 takes you to. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Let's just do it this way. No. You got to get to at least level 3 or 4.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of an intimidation factor in our industry on going there because, not only are these the technical products, but then, you're working in people's homes and, how intimidating is that? So I appreciate the level of detail.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, it's exactly what was missing from the TV days, like I said.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. I just feel bad that I ramble on sometimes.
No, it's good. Hey, in the Southeast, we have heat, not necessarily like the Southwest has heat, but we have heat. Sure. But, our bigger issue a lot of times is humidity. And, I've had a homeowner tell me one time, they'd said, hey, we go to sleep, it's 10 o'clock at night, we have the thermostat set at 70, we're comfortable, we fall asleep, we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's still 70, but now we're hot. And they don't know what's happening. They're just saying, hey, why are we hot now? It still says 70. But obviously, we know, that relative humidity went up. The air conditioner was running a lot in the evening to cool the house down, but then in the middle of the night, it's not running as much. So, how does that factor in, Anthony, when you're designing a home? How does that humidity control piece factor in as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have not dealt with humidity control as much. The Northeast, typically speaking, I find that forced hot air in the wintertime and air conditioning in the summertime, we kind of already have the right balance there. So I don't have to add that like additional humidification or dehumidification piece. For those that aren't aware, air conditioning is a natural dehumidifier. Forced hot air is also quite dry. So I would say, if anything, I think I remember maybe one project years and years ago, I added humidification to it because of that dry forced hot air in the wintertime, just making it a little more comfortable. So you're not having the scratchy throat or the dry nose, at night when you're waking up. But it's not an area of expertise for me. That's where I really lean on my subs, where I'll say, look, somebody has an allergy in this house, or, they tend to be, something's very dry or too moist, and we want to make sure we control that. And then I dig in with them and just continue to ask questions using overall, industry knowledge to then help the homeowner ultimately make a decision there. The one thing I will say that I'll do specifically when it comes to at night, and like you said, the air conditioning will kick off and it's not kicking back on, I'll tend to add additional temperature sensors to different rooms. So you have your thermostat centrally located or located where your HVAC tech is recommending it, and that's usually in an area that's sufficient to read that temperature. It's somewhere where it's going to be between your registers and your return air, so air continues to flow by it and it's getting relatively accurate readings for the home. But as we know, depending on the size of your home, there's a lot of different factors to consider. So at night, for example, having a separate or remote thermostat reader in the bedroom, or where bodies are that are releasing BTUs, that helps you to modulate that temperature a little bit more.
There's been a pretty good evolution in zoning systems as well. I mean, I think, when I first got into it, which was, the mid kind of early 2000s, everything was single stage. There were bypass, for the zones. And now it's way better. I mean, it's just some of those old zoning systems were so rough to try to maintain and install and get balanced and so on. So
wild.
It's so much better.
It's super cool. All those
15 years.
Mechanical dampers and all that stuff. It's really, really interesting. And I'll tell you, Stephen, even beyond like the zoning of it all, you said single stage. I mean, you remember when those things kicked on and literally every light in your house just dimmed down because it whacks your electric load so heavy. The train unit I have in my house, I think it has something like 750 stages in the motor. Anecdotal, but when my HVAC tech turned the system on for the first time, I was like, "Are you sure it's running?" And he's like, "You can feel it." I'm like, "I know, but," and I literally had to climb up to the attic stairs and put my ear on the thing. It's dead silent because you don't feel that, kick on and the clunk of the ductwork and all the rest of it. It just steps right, through those stages as needed. And that variable speed is so key when it comes to energy efficiency.
It's so funny how that single stage experience is what we've come to expect, or even, we compare so much to cars, right? But like that rev of the engine is like what we want to hear to make sure we know it's all working. So I think that's so interesting. So I want to go back to some of this, how we're designing and picking things, because when we did our basement, as I brought up earlier, I was very excited, and not to just fall into my stereotypical role here, but I thought, oh, this is so fun. I get to go pick out colorful cabinets and pretty hardwoods and just do all the fun designing things. Little did I know there was this whole design element going on before we even touched aesthetics. And in the moment, I was a little resentful of the time it was taking. However, I can say at post project completion, I'm really thankful for all the smart things we did down there. And like, for example, recessed lighting. Like at the time I was like, what is the deal? And now I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. It's a short basement. We have so much more room because of this. So things like
Sure.
that. So what are the recessed lighting parts of an HVAC system? What's kind of the thankless part of the design that really
Yeah.
matters?
Yeah. So first I'll say, Mary, that the hardest client I have to convince when I'm interviewing for a first time for somebody to hire me is someone who's never been through a renovation.
Mm,
Any client, whether I've known them in the past or not, that has been through a renovation, it's a 15-minute conversation. They're like, yeah, we know you're hired. Like
yeah.
you go through it once and you understand that you want somebody on your team who has fully focused for the last 20, 25, 30 years on this thing. It is a full-time job. It is not to say that the homeowner isn't involved. They're involved a ton. It's a very collaborative process. It's the ability to make sure you don't miss something and that every box is checked. So specifically to answer your question with respect to HVAC, the number one thing that needs to be considered is where you're placing your ducts, because they do impact aesthetics so much, or they can impact aesthetics so much. I say can because if you do have really nice tall ceilings, I'm in an old historic firehouse here in Jersey City. I've got 14 feet on each floor. So I don't have a single soffit anywhere in my home because I said, let me steal 6-8 inches from the seal, from the roof down, and hide absolutely everything. So you only see a few nice sleek registers in my ceiling. But if you're in an 8-foot, finished ceiling home, you don't have that option, or, you can't bury the ducts completely. So you've got to think about where the trunk line's running. And then that translates into, okay, well, this system needs to be sized, as Stephen was saying earlier. So what is the size of that duct? And, how much of a soffit are we talking about? Where can we place it to, make it the least intrusive into the home design as possible?
And I had a similar situation, Anthony. I moved into a house that was built in 1949. And so it wasn't just a matter of swapping out the old heating and air system for something new and fancy. It was that we had to completely redesign the ductwork because the old ductwork would not have even been compatible with kind of a newer system. So it is a process, to your point, that
sure.
If you miss that step during a renovation, it comes back to bite you in the butt down the road.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's like, even to this day, like I'm still not comfortable sizing the ductwork for the tonnage of this system. I always go to trusted HVAC pros to make sure it gets done right, because if you get it wrong, it's something that is going to rear its head after the project is done, and it's going to cost you thousands if it's even possible to rectify. Yeah. Because you need to have the right amount of you need to have the right volume of air flowing through those ducts. So number one, it's quiet. Number two, there's enough back pressure hitting the system so that, it can take the right readings and it knows how much air to push. These are not things that you want to say, yeah, I'm a GC. I'll do some math and figure this out. No way. And if you've ever been in a home where you've either heard those clanging ducts or you feel the rush of the air, that's the other thing. You're not supposed to feel an HVAC system. It's supposed to just kind of, be that silent hero that keeps the home nice and comfortable, keeps your indoor air quality nice. You don't want to know about it. And if it's installed the right way, you won't ever know about it. You change your filters on a quarterly basis or clean your filters if you've got reusable ones like I do. And that's it.
Give me some advice. I think I got very lucky in that I picked a good general contractor, and I had never done a big renovation before, and so I say lucky because I think I went into it thinking that I knew all the right questions to ask, and I really didn't. Sure. But our listeners are going to be all over the country, and some of them may be close enough to you to say, hey, I want to work with Anthony. But what kind of advice would you give a homeowner that is looking for a good general contractor to either build a house from scratch or retrofit, to keep in mind? I mean, we don't just want a house that looks pretty. It's got to be functional. It does. Yeah. We use that word comfort at the beginning, with proper airflow and temperature control leading to good indoor air quality. So help me shop for a GC,
Sure.
Just on a basic level.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you can't be in a rush. If you think you're starting tomorrow, you're already in trouble. You've got 6-8 months in prep work. And that's everything from finding your GC, selecting products, design, architecture, all that stuff. So that's the first thing to get right, is to, set your own expectations properly for the timeline. So if you want to be starting a project in 8 months, you need to be starting today on all that legwork from the homeowner's perspective. Gotcha. When it comes to finding a general contractor or someone like myself, who's a designer and project manager, in the commercial world, we're called an owner's rep. I am I am the homeowner's representative. So I'm another person that you can gut check against. GC hands you a change order. I can say, listen, Stephen, this is an honest change order. This guy couldn't see through these walls when he was quoting the project. This existing condition is here. We really owe him this money. Okay, got it. Conversely, GC hands you a change order and I go, BS, man. We had this on the scope of work. It's here on the architectural plans. I'm sorry you missed it. We'll help you work through it, but this is a cost you're going to have to eat here. So, there's a common misconception, I think, that a project manager and owner's rep just sides with the homeowner, and that's not what the job is. The job is to make sure the job gets done and that we divide responsibilities appropriately. And we do that through being honest and through overly communicating. So to answer the question directly, how do we find a good GC? You got to be willing to put the legwork in. This is not a couple of phone calls. This is not looking at pretty pictures on a website. You got to go to some jobs. Hey, Bob, I'd love to see something you have under construction. When can I come by? I'd love to take a walk. You do not need to know what you're looking at. People, I don't know. I don't know if it's framed right. I don't know if the wire's installed right. No, but you know the difference between a mess. You know the difference between a disaster and a neat and well-kept job site. Orderly or chaos. Is the job broom clean? Does the plumber have all his raw materials stacked neatly? Has the electrician run all the wires straight and nailed them off? Or are we looking at a rat's nest of wires going all over the place? It's like basic pride in workmanship. Anybody can discern that stuff. This is not, asking the specialty questions like we're getting into here and talking about duct sizing and locations and where all this stuff is going to sit. You're looking for pride in workmanship. You're looking for organization. You're looking for good communication. Do you see a lot of spray paint marks on the floor with different indicators? Do you see Sharpie marker written on the wall for switches and outlets and different things? These are all indicators that people are passionate about what they do, that they don't want to make mistakes because they know how long and how costly they are to go back to rectify. They're getting it done right the first time. This is not to say that you still can't make a mistake, but I find those things to be some really good early indicators, early signs to help you make that decision. And, it's funny. I have this conversation a lot with a couple buddies in the industry because we'll recommend different trades to each other, or, you recommend a GC to a homeowner and then you get called up yelling and screamed at. And it's like, sadly, word of mouth isn't always the best. People, what's that phrase? Past performance isn't a guarantee on future blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think it's a stock market, disclosure or something, or an investor disclosure, but it's the truth. Some guys I remember a buddy of mine was having an issue. He's like, can you come by and just kind of read this guy the riot act for me? I don't want to bother you, and I said, yeah, no problem. I come by, I'm looking at my buddy's job. I'm like, what is going on here? So as we're getting ready to leave, this contractor he just happened to pull up, and I start getting into it with him, and we're having a conversation. About a half hour goes by. I'm now his therapist. He's going through a divorce. He's upset, this and that, his kids and the thing. And it's like, okay, well, we know why this guy's a disaster now. So let's help him get this, project across the line. But it's just to say, like, life happens, and this is a very hands-on process. So, I don't know if I gave you a great straight answer there, but everything I said is true.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
you did. And you know what I love about that advice is we had done an episode about some hiring best practices and how to find really good talent. And
Okay.
a guest had told a similar story about, just walking the candidate back to their car. And you can do a real quick assessment on someone's car to know, like, do they care? Are they orderly? Is it a mess? And,
Sure.
just, kind of quick judgments that are going to help you make that decision. And I actually love the idea of asking a contractor, like, hey, can I see some work you've done? And I would imagine that the good ones say, yeah, come on in, and the bad ones are like, oh, I don't know about that,
Yeah. And Mary, just to put a clarifier there. So number one, like, not work you've done, meaning,
Yeah, okay,
like,
yeah.
I love the industry. I'm proud of my work. I'm not letting you in my house to see my finished
Fair.
house. But not only do I think it's important to see something that's under construction, preferably in the rough stage so you can see inside the walls, but I prefer to go in the middle of the day when guys are working. How many trades are on site? Are people communicating well together? Watching the organized chaos unfold into a well-executed orchestra, and this guy who you're going to hire is the maestro conducting it, is a great thing to witness.
Nice. So I guess just trying to keep it all straight in my head, I like how we started out. I like how you said at the beginning that indoor air quality is really the result of temperature control, humidity control, proper airflow, and so on. We talked a little bit about duct design, making sure that that's done properly so that we do get the airflow that we want in each individual room, not just blast it all in the living room and hope it trickles out to the rest of the house kind of thing.
Right.
And then I like just kind of like keeping that in mind as you go on site to go check out a general contractor's work.
Yeah. Did they frame the ceilings down? Did they or did they not have the ability to do that? Did they think about the soffits thoughtfully? And I guess, Stephen, it's kind of worth saying too, there's so many overlapping areas of responsibility in construction. So by way of example, a lot of architects don't even bother drawing ductwork on the plans. They just leave it to the mechanical sub to do that. Some architects do draw it, and then mechanical subs just ignore it. And so really, as a homeowner, this is a lot to take on as a homeowner. I guess it's an advertisement for my line of work again. But I'm very specific about saying, hey, architect, you can skip this. I'm going to work through it directly with with the HVAC sub, because we've got some existing conditions I want to take care of, or the homeowner's still contemplating an ERV and we're going to have to work that into the attic. So, just put a VIF on the plans, verify in field, and we will, or duct design in field by contractor. So like making sure those notes are there, because if you don't do that, then everybody has the ability to point at each other and say, well, it's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility. Oh, it's his fault. They should have done that. And you try and limit the amount that can happen and bring it as close to zero as possible. So everybody's got a really detailed outline scope. And when we do have that issue, we can go to one person. If you have a really good GC, they're obviously your point person. But I try and think beyond that in an effort to be helpful and efficient on behalf of the GC to say, okay, this is what's going on as we progress here.
Mary, I got a story for you.
I'm not surprised.
All right, but it was all right, but so similar to your house. It was a homeowner that was they were retrofitting their attic. They were building a room in their attic, And we came in and we did the heat load. We measured it all out. We did the duct design, and they called us back in midsummer, which was like 3 months later. And they're like, hey, the room won't get below 85 degrees. And so we had a technician troubleshoot the equipment. Equipment was working as intended. We came out, we remeasured, we redid the heat load. The heat load was proper. Finally, we went in there with an infrared gun, and we could see the studs in the walls. The guys that put up the sheetrock and the insulation just did insulation and every other chase.
Oh.
So when you saw it on an infrared camera, it was like zebra stripes all around the attic where they had just cut corners. And so the contractor had to rip the walls out. So
you got to be kidding me. It's like they thought they were filling every other cell in a CMU wall or something. Jesus.
Yeah, they thought they'd get away with it and blame it on the heating and air guys, but we figured it out.
Things, I mean, insulation is, relatively speaking, one of the more economical portions of the job. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, I think it just either they were waiting on a truck that wasn't going to arrive in time and they wanted to get it done, or it had to have been more schedule or manpower related, because like you said, the cost of the insulation is minimal. So they weren't saving a ton of money leaving it out. But there you go.
That's wild. Yeah, the amount of stuff you see on a construction site never ceases to amaze in all my years.
It's so true. So I just making it about me, as I always do.
Yeah, listen, that's the best way to ask questions, the best way to learn. If you have something that's personally applicable, it tends to stick around in the mind a lot more.
So we live in a pretty old house. It was built in the 50s. I live in the Northeast, and definitely relating to Stephen here, us East Coasters and humidity, like, wow, we've seen it. But as I've mentioned, we did a project on just half the house. But it was really kind of interesting to work through a lot of retrofit situations, because we weren't tearing this thing down and starting from the studs. Like, we were making it work with the footprint that we had. And so I'm kind of curious on retrofit jobs that you've seen, and maybe the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to HVAC, and how it can impact a job.
Yeah, so it's one of the harder things to retrofit. And, you know, I sound a bit like a broken record, but I guess especially when it comes to Trane, for those that aren't aware, you know, you have to be certified in order to install those systems. So you take a bunch of classes, and you have to keep your certification up in order to install those systems. It's why it gives me a super high degree of confidence when I call my HVAC tech, who is a Trane guy, and it's typically the system that I install or have installed on my behalf. Because you got to size everything properly. You can't just say, I need a new air handler. If you can't replace the ductwork and you are retrofitting, you've got to size the air handler appropriate to the ductwork. And then if that system, now retrofit, is not enough airflow to properly control the comfort inside the home as we've defined it here, then you need to add supplemental. So that's either a mini split unit or a secondary air handling unit with additional ductwork, and have those units work in concert, or with mechanical dampener. A dampener just means like it's zoned, so you can, the damper opens if the zone is calling for heat or cooling, damper closes if it's not needed, and then that gives additional power to another section of the system, or the system ramps down so as not to overpower the ducts that are in use. But I think the short answer there is it's complicated, and it's why when it comes to HVAC, like, the quality of that sub is infinitely important.
And well, that kind of, and it might be a very similar answer as to when we were asking about, you know, how do I go shopping for a good GC or project manager? But how do you go shopping for a good sub? You know, how do you kind of, what are you looking at when you're looking at an HVAC contractor?
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding repetitive, that, like, Trane being my preferred brand, and the one that I recommend to clients as much as I do, having those certified installers gives me peace of mind, so that, you know, 25 plus years, like we've said. I've got my subs around the area that I know. I'm ingrained in the industry, but I do travel for work, or I'll have a family member from somewhere else. I say, listen, I don't know anybody in your area, but this is what I can tell you. Trane has certified professionals. Like, I've done work up in the Catskill Mountains, down here in Jersey City. I've gone down to Florida. I have clients. Anywhere I work with a Trane certified pro, I've had a very similar experience. You know, different name, different company name, different logo, but the system is installed in the same manner. It's always sized the right way, and these guys know these systems inside and out. Not to mention, Trane's got tech support specifically for their certified techs. You can't call them, I can't call them, but those guys have direct lines. So if they're working through an issue on site, hey, I'm unsure of A, B, and C, they've got a direct line to, let's call it pro certified support for their pro certified techs. And I mean, I've seen guys on the phone for 2 hours with headphones in, literally like working while the guys talking, move that wire there, move this way. And it's usually solved in one visit. So, you know, all of those things are really important. You know, the build quality of the system is important. The longevity is important. The warranty is important. But supporting the guys who go and install those things is just as important, because when you come out for a service call, if you can't troubleshoot that thing on your own, like having those people at corporate that can help you through that is really dialed.
Well, we love to hear that. So I'm really glad that is a big part of the answer. And I'm also just going to plug the fact that now that we have our actual Train Technician app, and technicians can actually, you know, our support lines are incredible. And I agree with you. I've spoken with them myself, and I've always come away with so much knowledge, so incredibly helpful there. But with the power of the app in your hand and being able to actually text back and forth and get quick images and quick troubleshooting, you know, we're hoping to just even increase that speed to service. So great points.
Mary, I can even share with you, like I did an install. It was on my own house, and it was in the heart of COVID. And I forget, there was some material in short supply, and like basically my system's installed, and like we can't turn it on because we're missing this thing. One of the techs was like, if you have this relay box and you do this, we'll send you one of those. We have one of those. Within, you know, as soon as we received the relay box, they were basically able to jump cables or do whatever they did, but they were able to just heat and cool my home the right way, based on like this guy's insane knowledge of how all the systems worked and how a new system can interact with an old system. And that ran my my HVAC system on the first floor until the part became available. And now thankfully all those supply chain issues are in the past. But all to say is, like, it wasn't like, sorry, that's not available, you'll have heat when we get the part. It's like, oh no, I'm passionate about what I do. I'm going to figure this out for you. Here's a solution that's going to work.
Nice.
And being that problem solving is my job, you know, I always appreciate someone who's willing to go the extra mile to figure out the not so typical solution, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Anthony, you've been on something like 200 some home improvement shows and episodes and daytime TV. Where are we going to see you next?
Oh my gosh. You know, I'm actually taking a break from the cameras, man. I've actually even stopped shooting my YouTube stuff because I am so busy right now with private client projects. I've got a new wood-fired pizza restaurant I'm designing and project managing here in Jersey City. I just took on a new brownstone for a friend who's converting an old 4-family into a single family home for him and his family. But you know, I pop up on podcasts. I make little appearances here and there when I get called. And I'm sure as the weather starts getting nicer again, the cameras will come out and we'll be shooting more YouTube stuff as well.
Nice.
I'm very interested, just because you said it's just the uptick there. Are you seeing a little bit of resurgence in home projects right now, or building projects for that matter? Because we know just from lots of economic data that there was a huge boom in COVID, and then consumer confidence kind of waned, it kind of dropped off. But are you seeing a little bit of a shift into some curiosity on like what can I do with my space?
Yeah, for sure. So I think COVID was such an anomaly that anything after that is going to seem like a pullback. But at least in my area around here, Hoboken, Jersey City, northern New Jersey, like it has remained, relatively speaking, busy. I think interest rates not coming down as much as people were anticipating in 25 has people saying, okay, well, if I can't move or it's not a good value proposition to sell my home and buy another one because I'm trading a 2 or 3% mortgage for a 6% mortgage, let's do a renovation. HELOC money is typically cheaper money than mortgage money. So I find people, taking a HELOC or something like that, or doing a securities backed line of credit or something, and then getting into their renovation that way, and just creating that quality of life in the place that they are.
And if you have good consumer credit, you should ask your trained professional about those consumer finance promos, because that was my wheelhouse.
My depth.
Oh yeah, and I'll get you some good promos. That's a good plug. Definitely.
Right,
See, Mary, I knew we'd be friends by the end of this.
I had no doubt. I'm really happy about this.
So I got one last question. Speaking of, are we friends or not? So my family's from outside of Philadelphia, both on the PA side and the New Jersey side. So, and I went to Penn State. So Saquon Barkley's now a Philadelphia Eagle. Are you any chance you're an Eagles fan, or are you so far North Jersey that you're a Jets fan? Like what's your?
Oh God, I'm not a Jets fan. I'm not a glutton for punishment, man. No, honestly, I've never really had an NFL team. I like a good game, and I typically only watch during the playoffs because I've got a 4-year-old daughter. So there is no world where I get 3 hours to do anything uninterrupted. So
that is beyond.
But I can't tell you I'm a big Penn State fan because my cousin John, who I did the TV show with, he's a graduate of Penn State as well.
Nice.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And admittedly, I'm really only an Eagles fan because now Saquon Barkley's there. So I am more of a college football fan myself.
Yeah, and my sister went to University of Michigan, so I've got some big football, big college football, in the family.
Nice.
That's great. Well, Anthony, this has been really interesting to just kind of learn about another layer of the product management world and how it plays with our space and HVAC and what you look for. Very, very curious now. And I can't help but go into my own task list and think about all the cool home projects that I want to do. So I appreciate your
once you get that bug, man, it's you want to just keep going. And the more you learn, the more efficient you get with them, and you realize, as long as you put one foot in front of the other and you follow all the steps, it doesn't have to be that anxiety-ridden process.
Yeah, and plan the time, right? I really like that advice too. Just don't go into it with a rush.
Slow is fast.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Nice. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, so AnthonyCarrino.com, and then on all social media, various platforms at Carrino Anthony, CarrinoAnthony. That is me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And then listeners can always email us at HVAC_full_blast@traintechnologies.com. And if you're interested in looking at some more technical information about our products, you can always check out fieldtechhelp.com to just explore a little bit more about what we have going in the space of products and environments and, just different troubleshooting questions. I wanted to throw that plug in here today since we touched on that a little bit as well. Stephen, all good?
All good. Thanks for being here, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We will catch you soon.
Much appreciated.
Thanks. Bye.